The envelope sat on my kitchen counter for 3 days before I opened it. It wasn't anything official. Just a card my daughter-in-law had slipped through the mail slot while I was at my Wednesday Bible study. Pink envelope, my name written in her perfect teacher's cursive. I remember thinking, how thoughtful. I actually smiled when I picked it up. I made myself a cup of coffee first. Sat down at the table by the window where the light comes in soft in the mornings, the way my husband used to love. He's been gone 11 years now, and I still make 2 cups sometimes without thinking. Old habits are the last things to leave you. I opened the card. It had sunflowers on the front. Sunflowers. I used to grow them in the backyard when my son was little. He'd measure himself against them every summer. Am I taller yet, Mom? Am I taller yet? Inside, in that same precise cursive, she had written, "We're so excited for the trip. Just wanted to say we appreciate everything you do for this family. You're always so generous." I read it twice. I even put it on the refrigerator. That was 4 months before she told my son to uninvite me from the vacation I had spent 14 months planning and every cent of my retirement bonus paying for. I should back up. My name is not important. What I am is a 64-year-old retired school librarian from outside of Nashville, Tennessee. I have one son. He is 37 years old. He married his wife 8 years ago, and together they have 2 children, my grandchildren, a boy 7 and a girl 4. I love those babies more than I love breathing. That part matters, because it explains everything that came before the part where I almost let myself be erased from my own story. My son's wife, I'll just call her my daughter-in-law, because that's what she is, whatever else she became, is not a bad person. I want to say that plainly. She is not evil. She is not a monster. She is a woman who learned, somewhere along the way, that the best strategy in a marriage is to make your husband's loyalty feel like a competition, and she is very, very good at it. My son is not a bad person either. He is a kind man who loves his wife and loves his mother, and has never, in 37 years, figured out how to hold both of those things at the same time without one of them spilling. I spent a long time blaming myself for that, asking what I did wrong. Whether I held on too tight when he was young, whether I let go too easy when he got married. I don't ask those questions anymore. The trip was my idea, born on a Tuesday afternoon in February 2 years ago, when I was sitting in this same kitchen, looking at an old photo album I'd pulled down from the hall closet. There was a picture of my son, at maybe 8 years old, standing ankle-deep in the ocean somewhere in the Outer Banks, laughing so hard his eyes were completely shut. My husband had thrown him over a wave. My son had screamed and laughed and begged for more. We never took a big family vacation after that. Life got in the way it does. My husband got sick, then better, then sick again, then gone. My son grew up, got busy, and the idea of all of us somewhere together, really together, without obligations, without the blur of Christmas morning chaos or Thanksgiving's 20-minute window between football games. That idea sat in the back of my chest like a small, persistent ember. I wanted to give us that. Before I got too old, before the grandchildren got too old, before another year passed, and we all looked up from our separate lives and realized we'd missed it. So I planned. I chose a lake house in the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, a rental property I found after months of searching, with a wraparound porch, a fire pit, a dock with 2 kayaks, and a kitchen big enough for all of us to cook together. I chose September because the leaves would be starting to turn and the heat would be breaking, and the kids would have just gone back to school, so it wouldn't interfere with the school year. I chose a full week. 7 days. I paid the deposit in March. $2,200. I told myself it was an early birthday present to myself, because my 65th was coming the following spring, and I didn't know what else I wanted except this. Except all of us in one place, unhurried. Over the following months, I paid in installments. Flights for my son's family. They're in Denver now. Round trip, 4 tickets. Booked under the family account I'd set up years ago when we all used to travel to see my mother in Savannah before she passed. Groceries pre-ordered for delivery the day of arrival. I'd even made a binder. Activity suggestions. Local restaurants. A Saturday afternoon hike that was rated easy to moderate because my daughter-in-law has a bad knee and I'd accounted for that. I had accounted for everything. My neighbor thought I was taking it too far. She said, "Lorene, you are planning this thing like it's a state dinner." I told her it might as well be. My family was worth a state dinner. I still believe that. I first noticed something shift around June. My son had always called on Sundays. Not always long, sometimes just 20 minutes while he was driving to get groceries, but consistently. He'd been doing it since he moved to Colorado. Something changed in June. The calls got shorter. His voice had a quality I'd only heard before when he was a teenager and had done something he didn't want to tell me about. Not cold, exactly. More like careful. I told myself he was tired. He'd just taken on more responsibility at work. His daughter had started a new preschool, and it was taking adjustment. I told myself what mothers tell themselves when they don't yet want to know the thing they already know. In July, my daughter-in-law stopped responding to the group text I'd made for the trip. Nothing dramatic. She just went quiet. My son would occasionally reply with a thumbs up or a sounds great to whatever I'd shared. But her name sat still in the thread, unread receipts piling up like unreturned phone calls. I mentioned it to my neighbor. She said, which from her means, "I see exactly what's happening and I'm going to let you get there on your own." In August, I asked my son directly. Called him on a Sunday. He actually answered. And I said, cheerful as I could manage, "I'm finalizing the food order for the house. Does your wife have any new dietary things I should know about?" "The kids are still good with everything?" he said. Yeah, everyone's fine. She's been a little stressed." "Work stuff." "Is she excited about the trip?" A pause. Not long, maybe 2 seconds. But I have known this man since before he could talk, and 2 seconds from him is a paragraph. "She's been really busy," he said. "I think it'll be good for everyone to decompress." I said, "Of course." And I let it go. I shouldn't have let it go. The text came on a Thursday morning in late August. I was in the middle of making oatmeal. I remember that, specifically because I had just turned down the burner and was reaching for the brown sugar when my phone lit up on the counter. My son's name. I turned the burner all the way off. I picked up the phone. The text was 3 paragraphs long. The first paragraph said that he loved me and that this was hard to say. The second paragraph said that his wife had been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of reflecting, that was the word he used, and that she felt like the trip should be something more intimate. Just their immediate family unit, that the kids would do better with fewer people, that she needed this vacation to be restful, and that sometimes larger group dynamics could create unintended tension. The third paragraph said, "I hope you understand. It's nothing personal, Mom. We really do appreciate everything you've done." I read it 3 times. Then I put my phone face down on the counter and stood there for what I think was a very long time, because when I looked up, my oatmeal had gone cold. nothing personal. I had paid for the house. I had paid for their plane tickets. I had made a binder. I had accounted for her bad knee. I had chosen the week that wouldn't disrupt the kid's school schedule. I had spent 14 months building a gift with my bare hands and my retirement money, and he was telling me it was nothing personal, that I wasn't invited to receive it. I didn't cry. I want to say I sat down and cried and let myself feel the whole weight of it, but I didn't. I just stood there in my kitchen in the particular silence of a woman who is deciding who she is going to be next. I called my neighbor. She came over within 10 minutes in her house shoes and her rain jacket. It was barely sprinkling, but she wore it anyway, the way she always does. And she sat down across from me at this kitchen table and she read the text. And she looked up at me and she said, very quietly, "What are you going to do?" I said. "I don't know yet." She said, "Yes, you do." She was right. I did. I just wasn't ready to say it out loud because once I said it, it would be real. I called my son that evening. He answered, which surprised me. He sounded braced for something. That careful voice again, wrapped tight. I said, "I got your text. I've been thinking about it." He said, "Mom, I really do think." "Let me finish," I said. Not unkind, just clear. "I've been thinking about it, and I think I understand what you're saying. I think I understand what she needs." He exhaled. I could hear his relief from Nashville to Denver, all those miles of it. "Thank you, Mom. Really. It means—" "I'm not finished," I said. "I'm going to need you to book replacement flights for your family, because I'll be canceling the ones I purchased. The lake house is still in my name on my credit card, so I'll be reaching out to them directly. The food delivery account is mine as well." Silence. "Mom, everything booked under my accounts will be canceled or transferred out of the family profile. You're welcome to rebook on your own. The house is lovely. I'm sure it'll still be available for that week, but it won't be under my reservation." "Mom, you don't have to." "I know I don't have to," I said. "That's the point. I also didn't have to do any of the rest of it. But I did, and now I'm making a different choice." He said my name 2 more times. His voice cracked on the second one, "And I will not lie to you." That crack nearly broke me in half. That's my child. That will always be my child. There is no version of this story where that stops being true. But I thought about sunflowers. I thought about that pink envelope on my refrigerator. "You're always so generous." And I thought, yes, I am, and I'm going to be generous with myself now. I told him I loved him. I meant it completely. I said good night and I ended the call. I didn't sleep much that night, but the kind of awake I wasn't anguished. It was more like the feeling after you've finally said the thing you've been holding in your chest for a year. Like something had been returned to its right place. The next morning I called the lake house management. Wonderful woman on the phone, very understanding. I canceled the reservation and recovered the portion I could, which wasn't everything but was something. I went into the family travel account, the one I'd created, funded, and maintained for years, and I removed my son's family from the linked profiles. I sat in front of that confirmation screen for a long moment. "Are you sure you want to remove these members from the account?" I thought about the Outer Banks photo. My son, eyes shut, laughing, ankle-deep in the Atlantic. I clicked confirm. Then I opened a new browser tab. My neighbor's cousin. I've known her for years. A woman around my age, sharp as a tack, recently widowed, had been talking for months about wanting to do something for her birthday in October. Something she'd never done. Her birthday falls on Columbus Day weekend, which is a long weekend, and she kept saying she wanted to go somewhere beautiful, and just breathe. I also have a friend from my library days. We worked together for over a decade. She retired a year before I did, who had been saying for 2 years that she needed a real trip, the kind where you don't cook a single meal or make a single plan that involves other people's preferences. I texted both of them the same night I canceled the reservation. How do you feel about the Blue Ridge Mountains? I know a beautiful lake house. Both of them responded within the hour. We went in October. The leaves were extraordinary. I don't have a better word for it. Just extraordinary. Reds and oranges and a specific shade of gold that I have never seen in Nashville. Something about the elevation and the angle of the October light that makes the color go deeper than you expect. We drove up with the windows cracked even though it was cool, just because the air smelled like something you wanted more of. The house was exactly as beautiful as I had imagined. The wrap-around porch, the fire pit, which we used every evening, even the night it got cold enough to see our breath. My neighbor's cousin made her grandmother's cornbread in that big kitchen, and the smell of it filled every room. My library friend brought 2 bottles of wine she'd been saving for a special occasion. We sat at the dock and watched the water and talked about our husbands, our mothers, our children, our younger selves. We talked about the things women talk about when there's no one to perform for. I did not make a binder. I did not account for anyone's knee. I did not research age-appropriate activities or check whether the hike was rated appropriate for a 7-year-old. I sat on that porch in the early mornings with my coffee, 1 cup, the right amount. And I watched the mountains turn from gray to green to gold in the light, and I thought, I forgot that I was allowed to want things just for myself. I had been so busy building a gift for everyone else that I hadn't noticed I was never on the list. My son called while we were there. Saturday afternoon. I let it go to voicemail the first time, not out of spite, just because I was in the middle of a conversation that mattered, and I didn't want to interrupt it. I called him back that evening, sitting in a rocking chair on the porch with a cup of chamomile, the fire pit going low. He asked how I was doing. I said, I'm wonderful, actually. I'm in the mountains. A pause. Oh, I didn't know you were going somewhere. I wasn't going to, I said. Plans change. He was quiet for a moment. Then, Mom, I want you to know that she didn't mean for it to come out the way it did. I rocked once, twice. Watched the fire. I know, I said, and I think I actually meant it. Intent and impact are 2 different things, and I had spent enough of my life sorting out the difference to know that they can both be true at once. She hadn't meant to make me feel like a wallet with a woman attached. But she had. And my son hadn't meant to send a text that reduced 14 months of love into a polite inconvenience. But he had. I love you, I told him. That's not in question, but I need you to understand something, he said. What? I am not an unlimited resource, I said. I am your mother. I am a person, and those 2 things need to stop being in conflict. He didn't say anything for a while. I let the silence be what it was. Before we hung up, he said quietly, I'm sorry, Mom. 2 words. He said them like he meant them, and I have chosen to believe that he did, because that is the kind of woman I am, and the kind of mother I want to be. Not the kind who holds a ledger. The kind who closes accounts that have been overdrawn for too long and opens new ones that are properly balanced. When I got home from the mountains, I took the sunflower card off the refrigerator. I didn't throw it away. I put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I'll take it back out and it'll mean something different. Relationships are long things, longer than any single moment, and I have lived enough life to know that the chapter you're in is rarely the last one. But I also know this. I spent decades pouring myself into every cup in the room and wondering why I was always thirsty. I planned and organized and budgeted and bent myself around other people's comfort, and I told myself that was love, but it was also a habit. And some habits dress themselves up as virtues for so long you forget to examine them. I am 64 years old. My husband is gone. My children are grown. My grandchildren are small and sweet and will be grown before I finish exhaling. I have, if I'm lucky, 20 or 30 years left on this earth, and I have decided, standing on that porch in the October mountains with the fire going low and the leaves coming down one by one in the dark, that I am going to spend them differently. Not without my son. Not without my grandchildren. I am not done fighting for those relationships. I am, in fact, fighting for them right now in the only way that ever actually works. By refusing to let them become something small and transactional and one-sided. But I am also done waiting to be invited to the table I set. I set the table. That means I get a seat at it. My neighbor's cousin called last week to ask if I want to do a trip in the spring. She's thinking Savannah. She's never been. I said yes before she finished the sentence. I am already looking forward to it.